The Vandy boys' breakout late in the season has been great for the Rangers and their hopes for the future. But how much can Texas rely on those two first-round picks next year?
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into what the Rangers rotation will look like next year, how much they can rely on the injury-prone pitchers that they've got on the payroll for next season, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, the Rangers head into Chicago today for a 3-game series, and on Wednesday, even though the listed starter is listed as TBD, we are almost certainly going to get Jack Leiter returning back to the big leagues for his 4th Major League start, which I'm hoping, and given his recent run of form, and thinking it will be his best Major League start, just to get some of that early bad taste out of his mouth. But it's got me thinking about the long term, about next year, and about those two guys, and really about the Rangers rotation in general. The Rangers are going to be in a weird spot next year, coming off, they will be 2 years removed from a World Series championship. They will be coming off of a season that feels almost a certainty that they're going to have a sub 500 record. I mean, right now they are 11 games below 500. Say you sweep the White Sox, which you should do because you are not a terrible team. The White Sox are a terrible team. So then you just in 8 games away from 500 with a couple more. I think just actually will be one more before you hit the month of September. But they'll head into the season next year with, well, some question marks. Some big question marks, and a little bit fewer question marks than we thought they would have heading into this year, given the strides the Rangers have made with homegrown pitchers, and most notably, I'd say Cody Bradford. Yes, I know that Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker have been the talk of the town over the last couple weeks, and they should be. They've been fantastic. But there is expectations on those guys. There was a lot more hope riding on those guys. There is obviously a much, much higher ceiling with those two guys than Cody Bradford, but Bradford being just another name, a homegrown name, cheap, controllable, pre-arb guy who could give you quality starts, fit into your rotation. That is a huge, huge breakthrough. Now, what are the Rangers going to need from their rotation next year? Well, they're going to need it to be at least average, hopefully above average. Hopefully they get the offense back from 2023, make it look a little bit more like itself with what will be a full offseason, because this team is not going to go on a month-long playoff run like they did in 2023. So more time for rest, resetting, motivation of getting back to being the offensive team that they were when they won the championship. So hopefully there will be less pressure on the starting rotation next year than there was this year, which, by the way, the starting rotation pretty much held up their end of the bargain. The back end of the bullpen pretty much held up their end of the bargain. It is really most of the season's sinking is on the offense. So what does any team need from their rotation? Well, I wouldn't average it out for, 5 innings per start. Just conservatively 5 innings per start. That is 810 innings from the starters. You look over the last couple of years, ideally, you would have 5 guys in your rotation They would all make all 32 or 33 starts. They'd all throw about 180 to 200 innings, and everything would be amazing. But not everybody can be the Mariners. In terms of guys who have started more than one game for the Rangers this year, there has been 10. Last year, there was 9. I went and looked just to double check with the Mariners that I wasn't just, hyping them up unnecessarily, but they have 6 guys who have made more than one start this year, which is absolutely incredible. Their top 4 starters have made, I believe, 25 starts at this point of the season and are on pace to make basically all of their starts and all be pretty above average pitchers. The Rangers don't have that. They're working towards that. That would be the goal, but they don't have that right now. So what do they need from their starters? Well, they need some depth. They've got some depth guys. They need some top-end guys. You need, when you head into the playoffs, 3 playoff caliber starters, and you need your guys to be mostly healthy. So let's look at the locks for next year's rotation. Obviously, at the start, at the top, is Jacob deGrom. Now, how many innings could the Rangers bank on him next year? Well, obviously, I would love for him to make all 33 starts and throw 220 innings and win a Cy Young and have a 1.5 ERA and look like the best pitcher on the planet. But I'm also a little bit realistic. Just a little bit realistic. So I'm hoping for, this is still a hopeful projection of 140 innings from deGrom next year. I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that's unattainable. I'm hoping that he breaks past that, but I think the days of him throwing 200 innings are probably done. Even if he is fully healthy for the full season, the Rangers will be a little gun shy, I would think. I mean, how can you not be over him his last 2 seasons, last 3 seasons, basically since after the pandemic, he hasn't had a fully healthy season. And so how can you not be a little gun shy about wanting him to, if you are in contention for the playoffs, be ready for the playoffs, because this guy is game 1 starter is absolutely the best pitcher on the freaking planet if he's on the mound. Now, your other lock for your rotation next year is Tyler Mahle, who is currently on the 15-day IL after being on the 60-day IL for most of the season after missing most of this season and most of last season with Tommy John surgery. He is dealing with some shoulder soreness, had his velocity way down in his last start. It was technically precautionary, as the Rangers said, but we'll see how much we see him from now till the end of the season. He is your other lock in this rotation, but you go back and you look at the history of Mahle, and he is not a guy with a history of being out there for 150, 180, 200 innings. Heck, he's only had 1 season with more than 150 innings. That was 180 back in 2021. In 2022, when he split time between Cincinnati and Minnesota, he pitched 120 and 2/3 innings. Last year, he pitched 25 and 2/3 innings before having Tommy John surgery. He'd had 129 and 2/3 innings as his career high back in 2019. Mostly healthy during the pandemic season, but that's only a 47 inning workload. And then before that, what was basically his rookie year was 112 innings. So I'm hoping for maybe 120 innings out of Mahle next year, which is not a whole lot. And it gives me pause and I hope that he's healthy for 150 innings. Banking on him going over 150 innings as opposed to Jacob deGrom feels like a safer bet, since Mahle will be 30 next year. Still, 4 years younger than Jacob deGrom right now. But still, not a guy with a big, long track record of staying super healthy, being super durable, and being that guy who goes out there every 5th day and takes the ball and goes 5, 6, 7 innings. So the Rangers will need some help from elsewhere in the rotation, but where they're sitting right now, they've got some help, both at the big league level right now and help on the way. But how much are the Rangers going to bank on that, and can they be counted on to spend anything in free agency? We'll talk about that and the young Vandy boys right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you'll need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. If you want to look at some of the odds that FanDuel's got for winning the AL West, well, right now the Rangers are plus 13,000. The Astros are the favorite at minus 650, but those Mariners are sneaking back in it at plus 440. Or if you're wanting to bet on the World Series winners right now, Dodgers are at plus 310, Phillies plus 470, Yankees plus 550. So go check it out. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. Tonight, the Rangers take on the White Sox, 7:10 p.m. Central Time, first pitch. It's going to be a couple of great lefties, Andrew Heaney versus Garrett Crochet. You can catch every pitch on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, you may have noticed one key name missing from my locks. It was a guy who I think will probably start quite a few games for the Rangers next year, though I don't have him quite in the same echelon as Jacob deGrom or even Tyler Mahle, and that is Jon Gray. Now, for Jon Gray, I think ideally in the postseason, and ideally on a very, very competitive team with a very good rotation, which I'm not sure the Rangers will have next year, hoping they will have, but not quite sure they will have next year. I don't love Gray as your number 3 starter, but heading into next year, assuming the Rangers don't sign anybody, which I don't know is a likelihood, but definitely a possibility, Gray will be probably your number 3 out of camp. But he's not a guy with a long history of staying super healthy, pitching 200 innings either. Not that really anybody on this roster is. I mean, his career high in innings was 172 back in 2018. He did pitch 157 and a third innings last year, was healthy for basically the entire season until that fateful end of the season when he went on the IL and wasn't available to come back until the postseason, until late in the postseason, where he was a dynamite reliever, which is kind of where I'm hoping he will be in the Rangers, organization if they make the playoffs in 2025, which I'm feeling pretty decent about them doing. So I'm penciling him in for about 130 innings. Cody Bradford, the biggest breakthrough developmentally for the Rangers this year has been Cody Bradford. I don't think there's a question about that, of guys who you didn't have huge expectations for but made big strides. Cody Bradford is a legit middle of rotation pitcher as he's pitching right now. Probably more likely a number 4 or a number 5, but a good number 4 or a number 5, and a homegrown one, which, again, the Rangers have not done in freaking forever. That is a developmental win. That is a huge win. Now, how healthy can he stay? Next year, he dealt with some injury issues. This year, he dealt with some injury issues in college. The injuries really set him back quite a bit this year. I think he may end up with 60, 70 innings, hopefully closer to 70 innings by the time the year is done. But next year, in terms of how many innings I'm penciling him in the starting rotation, I'd say 120 is about a fair bet for how many starts he's going to make, how healthy he is going to be. Hoping it's more, thinking it definitely can be more, but you go back and you look at his career through the minor leagues, through even college. The most innings he's pitched in a single season was back in 2022. That is when he spent the whole year with Frisco. He had 26 starts that year, 118 and 2/3 innings. So around 120 is about where he's been. I think he could go up all the way to 150. But again, depending on the breakouts, breakthroughs, how much you're getting from those youngsters in Leiter and Rocker, that will kind of determine a bit of where his innings are going. If the Rangers spend in free agency, that will kind of, alter how many innings he's going to pitch and, how healthy Mahle and deGrom and everybody else in this rotation are. that will also kind of factor in. So I'm penciling him in for about 120 innings. And then, of course, you got the workhorse, Dane Dunning. Not spectacular this year, kind of really a down year for him. I mean, a 5 ERA. Last year, he was the Rangers pitching MVP. 172 and 2/3 innings. The Rangers do not win the World Series without Dane Dunning's contributions during the regular season. The year before, his 153 innings were massive. But ideally, Dunning is kind of your long man. You're penciled in, hopping in there for a spot start every once in a while. That's kind of the ideal spot in the rotation for him. Also, he's had some injury issues this year, a couple of shoulder injuries that have landed him on the IL for 2 separate stints. So I'm not entirely sure about how many innings the Rangers are penciling him in for next year. I think on the, more aggressive side, 140, maybe 100 innings is a little bit more likely. So I said 140 for this exercise. So that would leave us with 160 innings left for the Rangers. This is not penciling in any free agents, anything from the Vandy boys just yet. You have 160 innings to fill. Now, let's look at those Vandy boys. Let's start with Jack Leiter. Now, of the two, Leiter has a little bit more. He has, 3 starts more of MLB experience. He has a little bit more minor league experience than Kumar Rocker. He has a much healthier track record of durability than Rocker does. But again, his floor is lower. His ceiling is lower. But I think the Rangers are going to need him as a starter. And penciling in 120 innings from Leiter next year in the big leagues, I don't think that's out of the question. I don't think it's out of the question that he makes the rotation out of camp. In terms of guys who I feel good about making the rotation out of camp, I think I might even feel better about Rocker just straight up making it out of camp because what he's doing is incredible. But for Leiter, the Rangers are going to need him. Hopefully as a starter. But I think we're going to find out a lot about Jack over the next couple of weeks through the end of the season, what he looks like in these big league starts coming back up, if these changes are real and sustainable as a starting pitcher, or if he's just going to be, if he is going to be a nasty, nasty back-end reliever, because he is back to getting that floor of an elite back-end reliever. Not just a pretty good, 6th, 7th inning guy that you can pencil in a couple leverage situations. No, that is the stuff, the floor, I think at this point, is an elite closer. Which isn't what the Rangers want, which isn't what Jack wants. But the fact that that's the floor, getting back to that is a big, big step for Jack. And in terms of the Rangers banking on him to, make, 30 starts next year and give them 150 to 180 innings, they're not doing that. They're not asking that of Jack, hoping, unless there's some kind of injury bonanza that befalls the Rangers starting pitchers, which we've never seen that before. But at this point, where we are looking forward, even being on the most pessimistic side on the free agent market, we'll get to that a little bit later in the third segment of what the Rangers could do in free agency, what I hope they do, and what I think they might do. But banking on 120 innings from Jack Leiter, I think that's a safe bet for the Rangers. And if he comes back up, if he starts to regress, I think the Rangers, no matter what happens and however many starts he gets back up at the major league level from now to the end of the season, I think they're definitely going to keep trying him as a starter next year. If he starts to regress back again in AAA next season, if he doesn't make the roster out of camp, if he starts to regress and go back to his old bad habits and ends up looking more like a reliever because the command just isn't quite there to be a starter, then you're not going to get starting innings from Jack next year. But even if that's the case, the Rangers have another youngster, Kumar Rocker, who has the ceiling of an ace, always did, and is now looking like he is closer than ever to realizing that at the big league level. But there's a lot of injury concerns with Kumar Rocker, and how many innings can the Rangers bank on him next year, even if he is at his best and dominating at the big league level? We'll look at that and some free agent options for the Rangers on the starting pitching side, right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by SupplyHouse. Get supplies for the site that's made for the skilled trades. SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands. Get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. And talk to a real person, every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. Now, Kumar Rocker is the big question mark in the Rangers' 2025 rotation. Could he be up at the start of next year? I think absolutely. Heck, I think he could just go ahead and skip his first AAA start, which is going to be on Wednesday, and just straight up go up to the big leagues right now. Because the stuff is just that good. It is absolutely sensational. It is top of the rotation stuff because he not only has elite fastball velocity, shape on that fastball, the nastiest breaking ball I've ever seen from a Rangers prospect. The changeup is really darn good. We haven't even seen the cutter because he hasn't needed it at all against AA hitters or against, Arizona Complex League hitters. I'm sure he didn't need it against them. But the stuff is that good, and he also commands it incredibly well. He not only has the great stuff, but the command. Those two things, when they come together, that is what makes elite game one starting caliber starting pitchers at the major league level. That's what makes Jacob deGrom so gosh darn good, is because he has got the elite stuff and the impeccable command. Those two together is a deadly combination. But with Kumar Rocker, the questions are no longer what the heck is going on with that delivery. Can he get anywhere back to the hopes of, number one starting pitcher type of ceiling, or heck, what the heck is going on with him that were there the first couple of Arizona Fall League starts, less so in Hickory, completely gone now with what he's done in Frisco. The question now becomes, how healthy can you keep Kumar Rocker? And even if he is fully healthy, how much do you just let it eat? Because since his last year at Vanderbilt, he has pitched a total of, I believe if my math is correct, 80, not even 90 innings so far. This year, he's thrown 26 2/3 between 7 innings of rehab in the Arizona Complex League, 19 2/3 innings in AA Frisco. And I think a decent barometer for this year of him, his end-of-year total is probably around 50. So that's what makes me think he doesn't come up to the big leagues this year, along with it necessitating a 40-man roster clearing spot. Not that they couldn't do that or wouldn't do that or won't do that anyway in the offseason, but I think that is less likely. I'm hoping it happens. I would love to see Kumar Rocker dominating big league hitters as soon as possible, but I think they might temper the expectations on that. And for next year, I think he's absolutely going to be in the major leagues at some point next year. Whether he, makes the rotation out of camp because he's just so gosh darn good, whether he is close and starts the year in Frisco and comes up by, Memorial Day or maybe even before then, great. Would love to see that. But in terms of his overall health for next year, the most innings he will have pitched in a full season will be this 50 innings since throwing 122 his final year at Vanderbilt. So how are the Rangers going to limit his innings? I would assume it would be somewhere around the 80 to 120 inning mark for next year. Maybe it's around 100. You settle on a compromise there. I don't know exactly what it'll look like. I don't think that they're going to follow the Steven Strasburg method of just keep pitching until you reach that innings limit and then we shut you down for the whole year. I don't think that's how they're going to do it. I think they'd break it up in little stints of 2-3 weeks, being optioned and then put on the development list just for some rest and resetting his arm, kind of like they've done with Leiter a couple of times this year. And obviously that worked wonders because that's what happened with Leiter right before he came back up in his last 2 starts and dominated and got called back up to the big leagues. But I think hoping for anywhere between 80 to 120 innings from Rocker next year, even if he's fully healthy at the big league level, is probably about where you get yourself. Now, let's look a little bit at free agency. I think the Rangers' most likely move in free agency would be to bring back Nathan Eovaldi. If he gets, I believe it's 23 more innings over his next, till the end of the season, he will have that $20 million player option. But according to SpotTrack, his value on the open market would be 2 years, $48 million. I think the Rangers have the budget to do that. I think he would like to come back, but you get to that point and that age, and we'll see what the Rangers actually end up doing. They'll have somewhere around 60 to 70, maybe even as much as $90 million in room before they hit the CBT. So even if Ray Davis doesn't want to hit that CBT, he can push up against it and still spend a decent chunk of change this offseason. So I would love to see Nathan Eovaldi back. Andrew Heaney, he's valued on the market at 2 years, $22 million. He's been very valuable for the Rangers this year. I wouldn't really love to see him starting a playoff game, so I wouldn't want to spend any more than $11 million a year, but he's been very valuable for the Rangers, very durable, much more so than they expected, so I would not be surprised to see him back. As for Scherzer, I have no idea. I mean, he's valued at SpotTrack, his market value is 1 year, $14 million. I don't see the Rangers doing that. I don't really see them spending at the top of the market, even though I would very much like them to, so that you have a playoff rotation of DeGrom and either Max Fried or Corbin Burns. Max Fried's contract is projected to be 6 years, $128 million. He's had some injury concerns, some durability concerns, so I would be a little wary on that. Burns hasn't had those injury and durability concerns. He's been fantastic. Might win another Cy Young this year. 6 years, $183 million. That's $30 million a year. I think the Rangers might get outbid for that by Baltimore with new ownership and a lot of room to spend, and him already having spent a year in Baltimore. I think they will be very motivated to bring him back. But a guy in kind of the bargain bin, not to, pejoratively crown him that, but a guy who I think the Rangers could get very good value in, something that like they did with Tyler Mahle this past offseason, getting a guy who is, coming off of an injury, or, several injuries, but Walker Buehler listed at 1 year, $3.7 million in terms of contract value. That feels like an absolute bargain. If the Rangers could go up and do that, I know there are a lot of injury red flags. There is a very decent chance that he does not throw more than 20, 30 innings for the Rangers next year. But the Rangers have a very good training staff. Despite all of these injuries this year, and a lot of injuries last year, they have a very good training staff that, go look at how healthy Corey Seager has been this year as opposed to his time with the Dodgers. That is a big, big mark in the Rangers' favor. Also, Marcus Semien being able to play this many games in a row, also a credit to Marcus Semien and the training staff helping keep him healthy. I think that could be something the Rangers might at least look at. But you got to have at least 3 playoff starters, and if the Rangers' rotation heads into October, you're hoping that Jacob deGrom's healthy. If your number 2 starter is Nathan Eovaldi coming back, that's a great spot to fill. And if your number 3 starter is maybe Kumar Rocker, you feel really good about your hopes in the playoffs, especially if your rotation is fully healthy, which it never is at the end of the year. But if the Rangers, bring back Eovaldi as their only big free agent signing, maybe say they also bring back Robertson and Yates, which I really hope they do, and I think they should. And even though I don't know if Yates is going to have a sub 1.5 ERA next year, I think he's going to be pretty darn good again, because he just looks like very much the guy that was one of, if not the best relievers in all of baseball back in 2019. But even if that's all they do, you have a playoff rotation, you head into it, you have a healthy Jacob deGrom at the head of it for Game 1. You have Nate Eovaldi, Game 2. And then Game 3, say you manage those innings correctly and you have Kumar Rocker as your Game 3 starter, even if he is a rookie, I feel really, really good about that rotation heading up against anybody, especially if you have that back end of the pen solidified. If you have, Jack Leiter at that point would be in the back of the pen. He would not be starting playoff games. And then you also would have John Gray in the back end of the pen. Given whoever else is there, even if it's just those two as your two best back end relievers, I feel pretty solid about that. Then if you bring back a healthy Spores, who hopefully would be healthy at that point, we'll see about his health next year. He's been really hit and miss with the health the last couple of years. If you have a Robertson, a Yates, and then your 4 leverage levers are those guys plus John Gray plus Jack Leiter, that is a team, depending on where the offense bounces back next year, that could look to do the Bochy thing and go 1 year win a World Series, 1 year miss the playoffs, 1 year win a World Series. Hopefully they could try that whole 3 out of 4 thing, because I think a dynasty sounds really darn nice. But either way, the shape of the Rangers rotation next year, it's looking to be in a decent spot, even if you are on the pessimistic side of Ray Davis not spending any money in free agency. The strides that Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker and Cody Bradford have made has got to make you feel much, much better about where this rotation will be next year than at least I definitely was at the start of this season. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.